Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Matt, and this is Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit, your beacon of freedom and the American way of life. Tune in every Mondays for a new episode as we dive into the world of liberty and what makes our country great. Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Matt here with LLP. We've got another great show here for you today, and appreciate you tuning back in. Here every Monday at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we release our show, and we really appreciate you coming back to join us in this crazy world of debauchery and chaos. Hopefully, we're the beacon of light and freedom in that crazy world here. How are things, Matt?
It's great, on top of all that, some great conversations that help you get you through your workday.
Always. It's so crazy. I want to talk a little bit about that for a second. A podcast culture.
Yes.
That's not what today's show is about, but I will talk about that briefly. Today's show, we're going to be kind of talking more or less about the bug out vacation.
Yep.
Right. What do we mean by that? Well, to break it down, essentially what we're going to be discussing is road guns and like your preparedness when you're on the road and you go on vacation, primarily if you're, taking a car trip and, you have the ability to bring some things along that might be extracurricular. And we're going to talk a little bit about how the society and culture of that has really shifted and changed, and people have a much different mindset about the level of preparedness they want to have when they're out on the road traveling with their family, when they're going on vacation. It's almost this sort of combination of vacation and bugging out, like you're essentially kind of mixing those things. So we're going to talk about it, and hopefully some of you will come away from today's show with some ideas that I think will really point some of you in the right direction. Maybe there's some things you weren't thinking about. Maybe there's some things you've been doing that you'll solidify your opinions on your own process based on what we're going over. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. But I do want to talk about podcast culture really quick. It's so funny that you made that idea pop into my head, Matt, where I used to hate podcast culture. I used to hate, guys sitting around and talking for an hour or sometimes more. I mean, you look at some of Rogan's shows, they're sometimes 2.5 hours, depending on the guest.
2.5, 3 hours.
Right. And I used to hate that. I used to think, wow, what a waste of time listening to these people. But what's crazy, and I hate to admit this, but Rogan kind of changed my mind on this. It's like you listen to Lex, like I like Lex Friedman.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy his, very austere sort of, intellectual nature of how he handles guests. I always like that. And podcasts kind of changed for me a bit in recent years. It's like when I'm on the road and I'm listening to someone's show, I kind of like the conversation. I love the art of discourse and the art of conversation. And I think my view of podcasts has changed a lot over the years, especially since you and I started our show. This is episode 120, I believe. So we're 120 episodes in. That's 120 plus hours of conversations that you and I have had over the years.
Yeah, and some of them have been like very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Going all the way up to like tinfoil hat and alien abductions.
I know.
So
and I love discussing that stuff because, I like things that are on the fringe of society, Matt. I feel like there are so many ways that in the past, there have been areas of our culture that are on that fringe, on the fringe of society. The bohemian aspect, being a bohemian, someone who always goes against the grain of what popular culture dictates. And I used to despise that person. I used to think, what a degenerate, and you think of this bohemian view of liberalism and this bohemian view of libertarianism and, there's hippies, almost like this hippie culture. But in some ways, like as I get older, I look back on that and it's kind of weird, Matt, how we look at culture and we look at people and their views. If someone is liberal, highly liberal and leftist when they're young, what happens? A lot of times when they get older, they get more right wing, they get more awakened or more red pilled, so to speak. And they kind of become a little bit more well versed in the reality of the world and their views change. And I was always just extremely right-wing right out of the womb. I mean, I've always been a very right-wing person. And I still consider myself obviously extremely right-wing. But it's just so crazy how as I get older, I find myself kind of, I don't want to, now don't take it as I'm getting soft, y'all. It's not that. But I do kind of find myself thinking, there are middle ground on some things. And I think that when I look at the realities of morality and what real morality is. Like the animalistic nature of the world and how we tend to, we always talk about being tribalized, being tribal. And when you look at that in its full view, and the older you get and the more you witness the way people act towards each other and the reality of the world that you see in front of you, you realize that the reality is somewhere in the middle. And that's where I've kind of find myself.
Well, it's interesting you say, when you're younger, you lean more towards the left. And as you grow up, you gradually start heading more towards the right. And that actually happens more often than not. That was like me. I wasn't a completely left winger. But when you're younger, even when you come out of the military, obviously your morals and your values align more with the right. But then your sense of work, your work ethic, you're like, why am I working so hard? I'm not getting enough. And that kind of gives you that why do they have it and I don't have it? And it almost builds like that victim mentality from a very young age, because when you think about when you say, oh, you didn't put enough time at your company to get the raise, or you have to work for 10 years to get to like middle management. And that kind of sparks that thought of when you're younger, well, why do I have to wait that long? I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. And as you get older, you work harder and you realize that, I don't want to give someone that didn't earn it something. And that's when you start going more towards the right. And you're like, well, if I had to put in 10 years of, work to get to where I'm at, you have to put in 10 years of work. Like nothing's free. All right. And then that just sparks this big loop of like, hey, you have to earn it. Nothing is given to you.
That's right.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. And you nailed it. As you get older, as your income goes up, as your responsibilities go up, as the amount of sacrifice that you've put in goes up, you start leaning more right. And you're like, all right, buddy, like I see it now. I see the world as it is.
You begin to digest the realities of the world. Not only your world that you make and the people you surround yourself with and the decisions that you make that ultimately shape your destiny, but also the rest of society and where they sit in that equation. Because, I've come to this kind of strange realization as I've gotten older. It's like, I'm with my girlfriend out on the island. We take the boat and shoal. You've been over there.
Oh, yeah. It was a great experience.
We go over there and we backpack in and we set up our camp, and it's just us for miles.
Primitive camping.
And, and I'm thinking it's just the dog and me and my girl. And it's like, wow, I am so freaking happy being just me and her and the dog. And it's like, you know what? That's really what everyone wants. Everyone's striving for their own personal Garden of Eden. And some of us can achieve it and some of us can't. And when you can't achieve your goals, it's frustrating, and your initial reaction is to find someone to blame for, obviously, well, someone else's fault is why I'm not where I want to be. And maybe I'm a bad example of that because I don't really fit the mold and the scenario for what I do. I should be a garbage man or, a welder or something. Like, I'm a Joe Blow. I'm just a freaking hood rat guy that grew up in the ghetto that just happened to discover a calling that I didn't realize existed and create my own job. But that's not always everyone's situation. I'm very lucky and blessed to be in that situation. But people tend to, sort of want to blame someone else. And I think that the transformation from leftist to middle ground to right wing, that transformation, that Overton window that shifts so much as we see it. It's like when we see that transition occur, it becomes when we realize that no one's coming to save us and that we are responsible for our own failures and our own successes. And once you come to that realization, it's a very freedom defining moment for a person because, I can work as hard as I want, or I can not work as hard as I want. Once you kind of get to that point where you realize that, you can make more money if you work your butt off. You can also just live more simply. I think that's where a lot of the millennials are at, Gen X.
It's true. And
They're living more simply. Yeah, they may not be making as much money, but they're also just not living beyond their means. And I think that's a good thing to see. I'm not saying that they shouldn't strive for more, but they are living more within their means.
Well, it's like a double-edged sword because, the next generation is living, within their means, but their dreams is to have more. So they don't want to work. And this is a very generalization, and I apologize to any of our viewers that feel like they're getting lumped into this. But in general, they are okay with not working as much for a certain amount of money, say fixed income, but then they want more than what they can actually afford. So they don't want to work as hard, but they want more without the work. It's like this weird catch-22. Like, hey, I only want to work 40 hours a week. I'm not doing any overtime, but I still want to be able to go and do the Instagram vacations that I see. I still want to be able to have the nice car. I still want to be able to have the nice high-rise condo downtown or in Midtown, but I'm only working 40 hours and nothing more.
Right. And you're selling your time to other people and not building something around your own little nucleus of your own personal success story.
That's just from what I saw. That's just what I've been seeing.
Now, okay, that does segue perfectly into today's show, because what we're discussing is life and living and experiences. This generation, Gen X and the millennials, both I can kind of just lump together because they're all kind of in similar places of life right now, right? And this Gen Z, I guess, is the up and coming young generation that they're kind of becoming. Oh, I think Gen Z's getting now around the age where they're kind of getting in school, right? Is that the idea? Gen Z?
I'm not 100% sure on Gen Z. I know that Generation Alpha, which is my daughter's age. My daughter's 8. They are in a different generation.
They're in their infancy, essentially,
so
still
Generation Alpha.
Learning about how screwed up the world is.
Yes.
Well, regardless of what generation's going through what, let's just say, for lack of a better term, that the younger generation is experiencing a very interesting coming of age. And that involves, hey, they're prioritizing experiences over the material. Now, some may want the material, some desire the material. It's never been harder to buy a starter home. The prices on starter homes have never been more expensive. And all those things weigh heavily into the overall thought process that a young person's going to have in terms of starting a family, having children, laying down roots, and let's just say living the traditional nuclear family household story that so many seem to, want to be a prevalent thing in America. Like what one would call the American dream. But maybe it's not the American dream anymore. Maybe people are like, you know what? I want to live life. I want to live for myself. And that's a dangerous place to be in society because birth rates are down. A lot less people are having children. So anyway, without going down into the weeds on that, we're going to discuss life and living and the importance of getting out and having fun with your family and having these experiences. That segues into the show perfectly. Before we get started, I would like to thank our first sponsor in today's show, and that is my Patriot Supply. You ever notice how the power always seems to go out right when you need it the most? Whether it's a heat wave, a summer storm, or just too many people running the AC at once, our fragile grid can't keep up. That's why I got the Grid Doctor 3300 solar generator from my Patriot Supply. This thing is an absolute beast. 3,300 watts of off-grid power that keeps my fridge, freezer, lights, even medical devices running whenever the power grid fails. And right now, they've got a crazy deal going. When you buy the Grid Doctor 3300, they'll throw in 2 waterproof 200-watt solar panels absolutely free. That is an $894 value. These aren't cheap plastic panels either. They're super durable, waterproof, and built to last through storms, heat, and who knows what else. Shop mypatriotsupply.com/LLP to claim your free panels today. If there ever was a time to get serious about blackout protection, this is it. Go to mypatriotsupply.com/LLP. That's mypatriotsupply.com/LLP, Lima Papa, and get yours today. So when we talk about bugging out on vacation, so we're going to talk about how culture has changed so much around guns. I mean, it's been said before that if you change culture, that laws are always upstream of culture. As culture changes, as will the laws, right? We see how much carry reciprocity has changed, like, constitutional carry. I mean, there's over 30 states now that are constitutional carry and growing.
Yep.
Was it 31 now or something?
It's 29.
29.
With North Carolina being 30.
They're kind of on the fence.
But see, the funny thing about North Carolina is they have constitutional open carry. It's always been, you can open carry in North Carolina if you're a citizen. You can't conceal carry. So they're voting on constitutional concealed carry.
But for lack of a better term, let's just say that culture is changing around firearms and protecting yourself. And so do the laws, right? Those things have to go hand in hand. I mean, a great way to look at it is when you had prohibition, right? When they tried to, criminalize alcohol and everything, there's this huge underground market for illegal alcohol. You had speakeasies. You had these people, even the feds and law enforcement would go in and get hammered in the speakeasies at night. And there was, so what was happening? Culture, society was voting with their feet. And they were saying, you know what? We want alcohol. We don't care what the law is. Even the cops were putting them back. Now, you had some super pure, super Christian, super evangelical people who were like, well, I'm going to enforce the law no matter what. The Dudley Do-Right kind of people of the community that are untouchable. Yeah. And I get that. But the bulk of society voted with their feet. And they're like, well, we want alcohol. We don't care if it's bathtub hooch. We're going to drink and no one's going to tell us we can't. Yep. What happened? They had to repeal prohibition because people just simply disobeyed. And once mass noncompliance becomes a component of a law that they weren't expecting, they have no choice but to repeal that law. And we see a lot of things going on in the Second Amendment community with that. I mean, look how everything went with the braces, that situation, and bump stocks and things where we have these devices that sort of sit on the gray line of the law a little bit, like right on the edge. And people are always going to see how close they can toe the line to see how far they can go without upsetting the man. And eventually that becomes an overstep. Eventually people go, you know what? Screw this. We're not going to obey this. We're going to do what we want. And eventually it's like, okay, you're either going to arrest everybody and throw everyone in jail, or you're going to go, you know what? We lost. Like, this law, we have to repeal it. We have to do X, Y, Z. So many things in the Second Amendment community, I think that even the law enforcement, like even people like ATF, on their best day, ATF only has like 5,500 field agents for the whole country. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the whole world, I believe, like in the entire planet. That's not a lot of people to essentially police an entire society of people when it comes to firearm stuff.
300 million guns.
Right. So at what point do you realize that the war's lost and that, this whole thing is just a moot point now? Like, why disrupt people's lives? Why send people to jail over something that is just very innocuous and innocent? And I think that's where a lot of people are at. It's not that there's this kind of glowing, massive non-compliance with the whole thing. Well, perhaps there is a component of that. But part of it is just where people are like, what are y'all doing? What are y'all freaking doing? Like, you're disrupting the lives of normal people just trying to live free and protect themselves and live their lives by their own standards. Like, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? And how do you suppose you're going to actually carry out your wishes? And which of you are actually emboldened and motivated to actually carry out those wishes? So it's like, by the time, okay, yeah, on paper, you got 55,000 or 5,500 soldiers. How many of them are actually going to carry out the order? How many of them are, let's just say, how many of them are motivated to the point that they're actually going to, be politically brainwashed to the point that they're willing to politically carry out that? I just don't see the math adding up on that.
I think,
and that's how prohibition was.
Yeah. I mean, now I think that there's unfortunately more willing to do that for a paycheck than not. But back when prohibition era was going on, I mean, that says something when there's enough mass non-compliance that companies have concentrated grape juice that you buy in the grocery store, and they slap a warning label that says, do not add water and put in the cabinet and wait 1 week, or this will turn into wine. It's like, so it's like, imagine that companies are actively telling you not to do something, knowing good and well they're giving you the instructions on how to do said thing. Now imagine if they did that now. Like, gun companies are like, do not take out this fire control unit and punch a third hole in here,
right?
Or you will have a machine gun.
Do not combine bleach and peroxide.
Yeah.
Don't, for whatever.
Like, do not do this.
And I mean it, don't. And I'm not, now on that we're joking, but on this I'm serious. Don't mix those, okay? There's lots of household chemicals you shouldn't mix, boys and girls. So anyway.
Mainly ammonia.
Yeah, be careful with ammonia. Look, the point is people are prioritizing experiences, and what we're trying to provide is the context to sort of back up what creates the fringe of society who decides, I'm going to do what the hell I want, right? No one's going to tell me what to do. And hey, I may not have a lot of money to buy that boat or that luxury item or to buy that extra widget or whatever it may be. But dang, if we don't have the money to, let's go on a sightseeing trip. Let's go hiking. Let's go to the mountains. Let's get out and just share nature with the family, or let's just take a road trip. Hey, fuel prices are, pretty reasonable. In America, fuel prices are generally a lot better than they are around other parts of the world, right? In Brazil, my girlfriend's from Brazil, down there. Prices on fuel are astronomical, and cars are astronomically expensive. Motorcycles, astronomically expensive. And you got to worry about groups of thugs pulling you over on the side of the road and shooting you and stealing your car left and right. And they'll chop shop that thing, and they'll part it out. So at least we don't live in a country where you have to worry about someone popping you in the head with a gun and stealing your car to part it out for parts. Yep. You don't have to worry about paying $9 a gallon for fuel. So we have, for lack of a better term, freedom of travel.
We do. Now, how you travel is completely up to you. And I'm glad that you wanted to discuss this, because it is a mindset, right? So when you go on vacation or you're traveling, so my family, we travel a lot, and it's solely due to doing a lot of competitions. Like, I compete in jiu-jitsu. My daughter competes in wrestling. So we're driving all over the Southeast. Now, we have a rule. If the drive is longer than, say, 7 or 8 hours, we're flying. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, my back, I have a bad back from being in the Army, like, just not good. Knees bad, back bad. That's pretty par for the course for most infantry guys. I don't want to sit in a car for longer than 7 or 8 hours driving. All right. So we fly, but 7 or 8 hours, that puts us anywhere, including Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, like the Southeast region. We travel lifestyle wise. We keep everything packed. My car, might sound crazy to some people, but not to people that live the lifestyle. I keep a M&P Sporter 2 in the back of the car. Level 4 plates, vest, hearing protection. Everything is all together. Nice little package right there in the back, hanging on a hook. Underneath where my spare tire is, I have the actual carbine, ammo, everything set to go. That never leaves the car. That is always there. That goes with me wherever we go in the vehicle. Then I have my personal CCW that I carry with me. And that brings up a great point with reciprocity. When you said, hey, most people don't know this, but just because the state is constitutional carry, that only pertains to residents of that state. So if you are not, for Georgia has constitutional carry. If you're visiting from another state and you are not a resident of Georgia, then that constitutional carry does not pertain to you, because you are not a Georgia resident, which is why you need a CCW if you're going to travel. So that way, if I'm traveling around to these different states, I don't have to worry about it, because that has reciprocity. Do I like the fact that I, have to get a CCW license permit? No. Does it help? Absolutely. It helps keep everything kosher as far as traveling. If I go to purchase a firearm, instant. I'm not waiting, background check. They've already done that. I'm glad that it's not required, but it's good. It's good that, when we travel back and forth, it makes life easier. But that's the main thing. Like, you have to be, when the subject of the podcast, bug out vacation. Like, we go on vacation to Florida, wherever, we make sure we have all that stuff with us. Like,
well, you got to think, you're away from home. You don't have the conveniences of being able to go in and grab a blowout kit or grab a medical kit or grab a tourniquet. I mean, and look, I know we all have this sort of view, right, that if something bad happens, it's going to be some John Wick shit, and you're going to be and reloading and all, all this sort of stuff. I mean, as guys, we can't help but fantasize that a bit. I mean, look, it's just part of being a man and being masculine. Is like, who doesn't want to save the day? Like, everyone has that view, and I get it. Trust me, I do. You should be prepared to be Wick if you need to, but more than likely, you're going to need to be the medic. You're going to need to apply medical, and there are so many ways to get hurt beyond firearms. We get pigeonholed into this mindset of thinking that, well, because I'm a gun guy, whatever, if I get hurt out on the road, it's going to be from a gun. Yep. And we tend to have that very erroneous view. The fact is, there are way more ways to get hurt. There are plenty of ways to get hurt, y'all. The chances of you needing to plug a hole are way, way, way more than you making a hole. I mean, let's just face it. Now, you need to be prepared to make some dang holes if need be. You need to perforate your enemy if they decide to come in for you. You got to be ready. But also understand that the chances of you needing to, deal with a little cut on your little girl's finger, or deal with a little bruise or a bump or a strawberry, she fell down, scratched her knee, and those types of things happen all the time. And you're going to need to prepare for those little eventualities. And I know this sounds crazy for me to say, but the little welly boo-boo kits, you're going to find yourself cracking open that welly way more than you are your bug out bag or your chest rig or something. But you need to be ready in case something goes south, because your family relies on you. If you are the only means of protection they have and you're away from the home, you have no way to hunker down in your abodement and protect yourself or run away, solidify yourself somehow. You've got to be willing to harden up and deal with the situation as it unfolds in front of you. And that's not always an easy thing for people to work out in their minds, because, we are generally a pretty peaceful society in America. Generally, we're a very high trust society. Generally. It's like there's only certain places you go where you kind of feel like, all right, we're gonna put the, maybe instead of the gun being in the box over here, we may have the gun sitting under a leg or sitting in a holster. We may just sort of move it where it's maybe a little closer to get to. Maybe that's the mindset. All right, hey, maybe we're gonna have the M4 with a round in the chamber. We're gonna be ready. You just never know. And I'm not saying those are the kind of places that we all regularly frequent, but it's not to say that there aren't places that are more dangerous than others. That's just the reality of the world that we live in. And even though we are a very high trust society, there are going to be situations where you find yourself sort of upping the threat factor a bit in your mind. This is not something you make an announcement over you're in your car and go, threat level 4 here. Got code yellow. We've gone from a code green to a code yellow. No. But in your mind, you're constantly reassessing the threat factor that you see and the potential for threats. And you're always remaining very vigilant and paying attention to everything that you see around you as it unfolds. And I think that's just part of being a normal protector, a normal masculine man. These are things that you don't need to train to do. You just need to instinctively do it, because that's part of being a man, is assessing your surroundings and knowing when something could go wrong. Your partner's job, and again, this is assuming we're all man and woman here, but let's just say your lady's job is to just be a woman. She doesn't need to be thinking about all of the minutia of death and destruction and mayhem. She needs to be worried about her nails and her makeup and her outfit and, what the kids are doing. She's checking on the kids. She's making sure the kids are comfortable in the car. Hey, when are we going to stop? I have to pee. Hey, I'm hungry. I want a burrito. That's her job, is to worry about the minutia of living. It's your job to keep them alive. And in my mind, that's the man's job, is to bear the brunt of that chaos so that your partner doesn't have to. I mean, that's just part of it. Now, there are couples I've seen where both are kind of on the, kind of unhinged.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like I've seen couples before, I've seen chicks with the Liberty tattoos and all that. And yeah, would that girl grab an MP5 and smoke someone? I'm sure she would. But I'm saying that, for most people, generally speaking, the man is going to be the provider of the security in that equation. I would say probably more times than not.
I think, it really comes down to, that's a great point. I think that it just comes down to like what you're looking for in a partner. Some guys are looking for a teammate, a partner to do that. Like they're both very similar. They're both always head on a swivel. They both always have each other's back. And then there's some guys, I'm very much in your ballpark of, hey, I want to be the protector of the family. That is my burden to bear, and I will do a good job of it. And your burden is, hey, let's take care of the house. Let's take care of the kids. I'll do my part of, trying to upkeep the house, of, doing the duties of what needs to be done. But let me be the man. Let me be the protector.
It's so crazy. My girlfriend is so awesome. I'm telling you, like she grew up in Brazil. So, look, y'all, the Brazilians,
the murder capital of the world.
Look, the Brazilians are wired completely different, y'all. Like, they have a completely different mindset on what that means. And I'm very lucky that my girl, she's the kind of girl that she'll doll up and look all pretty and have all her, done up really right. And, she loves to look good and have her makeup on. And she's a very feminine girl, and obviously. So, but you would think, she's harmless. So you look at her and think she's just a little schoolgirl. Oh, she's harmless. But I tell you, if something went down, she's going to have that Beretta pointed at your freaking face quicker than you can even think. Like she's hyper vigilant because of how she grew up. Now, I'm not saying that every person should be like that, but I think she's perfect in that. Like she is so in tune with that violence factor. It's awesome. Like
she became a product of her environment.
And you're a product of your environment. That's a perfect way to put it, Matt. You're a product of your environment. We're going to take a moment to give a quick shout out to the next show sponsor for today, and that's modernwarriors.com.
Perfect.
And that's a perfect sponsor for this spot here. When it comes to protecting yourself and your family, having the right gear matters. That's why I trust Modern Warriors, your go-to source for all things tactical. They've got a massive selection of firearms, suppressors, and accessories, everything from high-end builds to everyday carry essentials. Whether you're a collector, competitor, or just looking for reliable self-defense options, they've got you covered. With over 800 five-star Google reviews, their customer service speaks for itself. And right now, you can save 10% off your first order when you use the promo code LIBERTY at checkout. Visit Modern Warriors today, browse their selection, and see why they're not just another gun shop. They're your tactical specialists. Remember to use the code LIBERTY at checkout. That's Modern Warriors, code LIBERTY. All right. And a big thanks to them for being a part of the show and what we do and everything like that. Really, really great group of people there. I'm hoping I can go visit them in person one day when I'm passing through. It'd be cool. All right. So we look at the whole protector paradigm. What do we mean when we say this whole bug out mentality? And that you actually laid out the foundation perfectly when you talked about the way that you organize your vehicle when you're traveling. You have the option to use that stuff if you need it, but you don't make a big deal about it. You don't show it off. You don't have tactical stickers all over your car, gun right stickers all over your car. You don't wear tactical pants and tactical breeches and tactical backpacks. I mean, this whole gray man mentality. Look, I get it, okay? Because I used to be the kind of person that wore boots and tactical pants and the veteran hat. It's trust me, when you're exposed to the military environment, it really does institute this sort of regimented way of thinking in your life, and you want others to know that you've been indoctrinated into that regimented way of thinking. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? If we see another veteran wearing a veteran hat, that's an instant conversation starter. You can go, hey, what did you do? What was your MOS? So we want to feel included in a group of people. Like, it's natural for us as human beings. We want to feel included, and we want our people to know who we are. And and it doesn't matter, guys. It's universal. If I see an old Navy veteran from World War II, do you think for 1 second that I'm not going to go over and talk to that guy? Of course I am. I want to hear a story, like a quick story. And if you're wearing a veteran hat, hey, war in Iraq and then World War II, well, guess what? You instantly have a bond and you don't realize it yet. That veteran's going to see you and he's going to know that he can talk to you about anything because you've been in something, right? So a lot of veterans, they don't want to talk about things that they did, not to a normie. but they're going to talk to another veteran. So it's kind of like, why do people wear the veteran hat? Because it identifies you as a veteran. And when you talk to other veterans, it's like, that's kind of that universal sign. It's like, okay, this person's in the know. Mm-hmm. So I know how far I can take the story if I want, or I know how far I can talk about something, or I know that if I use some vernacular or acronyms, I know they're going to understand what I'm talking about. They're going to know what an MOS is. Like, there's just certain lingo that civilians don't understand. And it's not being big-headed or weird. It's just the reality of military life compared to civilian life.
No, you're absolutely correct. And I've had the privilege to talk with, I'll see them out in public, Vietnam veterans and World War II veterans. And I think, when you're having these conversations with them and you're kind of like, chewing the fat and telling stories, you don't have to emphasize certain things like you would with a civilian. Like a civilian, granted, I'm a civilian now, but like when you're telling these stories, you're like, oh, I shot him. Like a normal, another combat veteran's like, yeah. But for someone that's never served, they're like,
yeah.
Like you have to like really kind of pick and choose, like,
right.
Like to make it seem like you're not some kind of psycho. You're like, I had to shoot him. Like, no, like I shot him. Like
there's no filter with veterans.
Yeah, it is what it is.
And man. When someone looks the part, they're wearing the hat. I mean, and when it's stolen valor and when it's not.
Yeah.
Come on.
You can tell.
And as a veteran, and if they look the part, that there's no filter. There's no boundary with that person. And it's crazy. You can be a complete stranger. I've walked up to World War II vets before, and and this is when I was still wearing my veteran hats and stuff, and or something that would indicate that a prior service of some sort. I think at one point I was wearing a CIB hat that has a CIB on it. Some of us we do that. I don't do it anymore. I'm going to talk about why. I'm going to get back to the original. I haven't gotten too far off track, but I'll get back to the original thought. But I remember talking to one guy, and he opened up about Guadalcanal, and it's like, whoa, yeah. Like holy crap! Like this Marine is talking about, holy crap! I was like, wow, I'm hearing that. Like he trusts me enough to like, it's almost like they know that those stories are going to fall by the wayside. They're going to be gone when they're gone. So when they tell you those things, it's like, that's an honor for someone to put something that heavy and deep on somebody they don't even know.
But they trust you enough to accept that you're okay with it because you've experienced something similar. Maybe you weren't stacking bodies like sandbags like in Guadalcanal. Because,
right.
Man, they stacked them deep.
But they know that you're gonna pass the message.
Yes. And you're not going to judge them for their actions.
Yes, and that's what it all comes down to. So getting back to the gray man, many of us have kind of come to the realization that sometimes it's not always practical to walk around with the combat boots and the tactical pants and the all this sort of stuff. And the whole gray man mentality has gotten much, much more popular in society. So as Matt said, getting back to the original statement that I was trying to, I get off track sometimes, but what I was trying to complete my thought process was that Matt, by having this gray man view, no stickers, no tactical crap, no veteran this, veteran that, gun rights this, gun right that, come take it this, come take it that.
It's bad when I see those come and take it stickers
right.
on the back of trucks.
You don't put a come and take it sticker on your car because they're going to come take it.
Oh, yeah, they will.
They're going to wait till you're parked at Disneyland. They're going to break the back window and take it, So, there is a beauty in not being known.
Yep.
To blend in with the normies. As hard as that is, I get it. Like, if you went to the FBI Academy and you made it through FBI Academy, I know how hard it is not to put that FBI Academy sticker on your car. I get it, okay? I know how hard it is. You're proud of it, but I'm telling you, it's like, don't.
Yep.
Just
don't. A target.
Just don't.
I will say this, though. And
you should know that from being in the FBI Academy, by the way. Anyway.
No, it's true. How did you make it through and not know that? I will say, and I'm just gonna go back real quick because I know we're gonna move on. When I did talk with those World War II vets and Vietnam vets, the one thing that I always found interesting was that they would always look at me or any other GWAT soldier, and they would always comment the same thing. They're like, "Oh, you guys had it so bad." Isn't that weird? Isn't that so weird? They would always, and the crazy thing is we looked at the opposite. We looked at it to them like, you guys, both of you, Vietnam and World War II, had it so much worse. And I asked them why. I was like, so why would you say that? Why do you think that? Because we, the GWOT guys, we think you guys had it way worse.
They did.
And well, see, that's our opinion. But the one thing they said was they knew who they were fighting. And they said at least they knew the difference. Like they could look at somebody and say, hey, that's the enemy and this is not. She said, you guys had no idea. You have guys trying to blow you up on the road. You're going into villages. They think you're your friend, but they're not. They said that's worse than not having a frontline war. And I was like, you know what? That does make sense. That doesn't change my opinion. I still think you guys had it way worse, but I can see why you would think, because basically we're fighting a war. We were fighting a war that they had no experience on how to fight.
Vietnam was a royally shitty war.
Yeah. It was just so crazy to like,
I will never equate what I went through to what they went through.
We used to talk about that when we were over there.
Having trench foot and walk around nasty, getting rained on all the time,
wading rivers.
Oh man.
Just being soaked. Can you imagine wading through doing a river crossing and then spending the next 3 days in a humid jungle?
Never being dry.
Yeah, not being able to dry out.
Swamp ass.
Oh man.
Crotch rot.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Imagine the chafing on your legs. I mean, no way. Yep. And then they're trying to kill you the whole time.
So like we look at it from that point of view, and
well, like, as infantrymen, we're like, no way, that's the suck.
Yep. And then
jungle fighting sucks.
And then they look at it from their point of view, like, oh, you're just walking down the street, and they try to blow you up. Like,
venomous snakes, big ass spiders, dangerous monkeys, even probably. No way.
Howler monkeys.
Yeah, I mean, no way. I mean, then you got to worry about a monkey stealing your canteen or something.
Yeah,
wake up, damn, what happened? There's no telling what those guys went through, and they view it so nonchalantly. Because when you look at something in retrospect, it's easy to go, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
But while you're doing it, you're thinking, oh, I want to go home.
Well, that's what makes it so relatable between war veterans, is that like we all experience suck, so we can all relate on that same level. Like,
yeah, the suck is the suck.
Yeah.
No matter where it could be hot and dry, or it can be hot and humid, but the suck is the suck.
Oh yeah, man.
I got a lot of respect for those guys.
Tremendous amount of respect. So
a lot of respect.
With that said, I didn't realize, the way that I have my vehicle loaded out when I'm traveling, I didn't realize how crazy it looks to other people, because I'm like hanging around people that are like me, until a guy needed me to jump his car. And my battery, I drive an Audi, and the Audi battery is in the trunk. All right. So guess what else is in my trunk? Like all my gear. So I had to back up to his vehicle, and I popped my trunk, and like he's standing there, and my trunk opens, and he's like, I look at his eyes, and his eyes just kind of like, oh my God, what is this stuff? And like I said, plate carrier, full loadout, everything. And then I have to open up the spare tire well. Underneath the spare tire well is where I keep my carbine. And this guy's like, who is this guy? And I have to pull all the stuff out of my trunk. Unfortunately, the battery is in a very inconvenient location in my vehicle. So I had to pull all this stuff out. So I'm just putting it on the ground, and it just looks like I own a firearms store. I'm like, all this stuff is laid out. I finally get his vehicle jumped, and I find it perfectly normal. And I don't know if it's just because I'm conditioned to accept the fact that like this is how people travel, but I would like to believe that there's more people out there that travel in this manner than not. And that's just like, that was that come into Jesus, like, oh man, I should have probably been a little bit more careful about, letting him know like, hey man, this is normal stuff.
Right. But the reality, Matt, is that is much more normal to a much larger subset of society.
I'd like to believe so.
I want to believe it too. And I tell you, the more and more people I run into that they kind of seem like normal people, like just normies going about their day. You're seeing more people owning an AR, owning maybe some armor, owning a few extra magazines, having a little food storage, having some basic preparations in place. And I don't see anything wrong with that. In fact, I celebrate it, even when it's people that maybe they think differently than me. I think that if someone thinks differently than me politically, that's okay. I'm willing to accept that I could be wrong. I hope that they're willing to accept that they could be wrong. I hope that they're willing to accept new information as they see it, and that they'll think about their views as logically as I do. I hope that. And I really want to believe that for a majority of people. But being able to protect yourself outside of the confines of organized government interference is probably way more important to your political, let's just say, education than anything else could ever be. Because once you begin to think as an individual, to think as an independent person, to be an independent thinker, to gather the facts, to protect your views with your own might, rather, and to gather your own might to do that, you really do become your own person. And over time, you begin to sort of reject some of the traditional confines of what you feel society has placed on you, such as, I'm not saying just, be an anarchist, but I think that part of your political education is falls to the wayside when you don't have the ability to protect yourself outside the confines of the government protecting you. You should never rely on them to protect you. Now, is that to say that if something terrible happened, let's say we were invaded by an outside army? I know this is one of those weird John Wick scenario where we go, John Wick, Red Dawn, right? Those two scenarios. A Red Dawn scenario, we're being invaded. Everyone wants to believe that they're going to grab their rifle and run out the door and go fight the bad guys. And honestly, I think it's way more true than you might think. I think a lot of people are not going to have that, right? But when we look at that, is that to say, now, do I want an F-16 dropping a bomb on the enemy in the wood line at that point? Yeah, I want the F-16s to help me if I can, right? I'll take the government when it benefits the greater society. But if I don't have to, I don't want to interact with them. You know what I mean? I don't want anything to do with them if I have a choice.
Right.
And I have to absolutely need it. It has to be beyond the need. It has to be so far into the realm of need that there's no other choice. Now, some people don't have that mentality, but I think that when you gather the tools of self-preservation, and that comes in the form of medical, food, water, guns, whatever that mindset. Once you gather that mindset and it becomes a part of your life, you begin to question what you've always been told about what government's role is protecting you. We're going to go ahead and take a moment to shout out the next sponsor of the show, and that's our friends at AllegianceGold. One of the things I've always admired about President Trump is that he believes in letting Americans be Americans, strong, self-reliant, and free. He cut taxes, fought for our energy independence, and told the global elites to get lost because he trusts the American people to take care of their families and their future. And that's exactly what you need to be doing right now with your wealth. And let me tell you, while the media spins distractions and the markets bounce all over the place, gold and silver have been quietly climbing, recently surpassing $3,300. They're doing what they've always done, and that's protecting value, preserving freedom, and giving Americans a hedge against uncertainty. You can sit and wait, or take the kind of action President Trump would respect: smart, calculated, and prepared. That's why I trust AllegianceGold to make it easy to roll over your IRA, 401k, or TSP, or make a direct purchase of physical gold and silver. Okay? Call 844-790-9191 or visit AllegianceGold.com/LLP. That's Lima Papa, LLP show, Life, Liberty, and Pursuit here. Right now, you can get up to $5,000 in free gold or silver coins with a qualified investment. Freedom means protecting what's yours. Don't leave it to chance. AllegianceGold.com/LLP. And of course, that supports the show and helps you get yourself a hedge against inflation, a hedge against uncertainty. I have always believed in investing in precious metals. I have a lot of silver. I don't really have as much gold. My grandpa had some old Cougarans that are really cool, and I think those got sold some time ago. Well, actually, I think the family got a hold of those, and they got rid of them real quick, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
But I think he had about 3 dozen Cougarans, which, those things are... Yes.
I mean, it's for what it is. If you're looking to diversify your portfolio, diversify your investments in general, take it for what it is. Gold is a great investment. Do not look at this like, oh, this is a SHTF I'm going to carry around 50 pounds of gold with me, because you're not. But if you just look at it straight from, hey, I'm going to invest this and it's going to turn a profit. Yes. Because gold historically as a commodity has gone up. You're going to make money. Just don't have the idea that you're going to bug out with a tremendous amount of gold bullion.
And gold is a long game. So just remember that investments are a long game. Don't, the type of investment that is going to yield a very quick and large return in the short term is usually extremely high risk investment. So just remember that the good thing about bullion, the good thing about physical assets like gold and silver is that it is always going to maintain its solidarity with the market in the now. So wherever you place that money now, it's never going to generally, it may go down some. Of course, markets are markets and they fluctuate. But it's always going to be a commodity that will continue to climb. And historically, when you look at the price of gold and silver, it has historically climbed. And as the debasement of currency becomes much more of a thing, you're definitely going to see markets be very volatile because the dollar has less purchasing power. I mean, after all, a dollar silver coin used to be $1. So what does that tell you about $1 now? An ounce of silver, I haven't checked spot, but I'm thinking probably $40 or more for an ounce of silver, at least, right? And at 1 ounce coin. If I had to guess, your average Morgan's probably selling for $40, $45, maybe more. I haven't checked the markets, but again, that used to be $1, Matt. That was $1.
Yeah.
So that means that your dollar's worth 45, 50 times less than what it was when a Morgan was $1.
To just give you, that's silver. So silver has traditionally been a little bit more volatile.
Right.
Gold, it's grown tremendously. The current spot price right now is $3,266 per gram.
Wow.
Now imagine you see the guys walking around with like the Cuban link necklaces. It's like probably like 15 grams of gold, man. Like some big chunky boys. That is a very expensive necklace.
But it's a good way to protect your wealth. If you're wearing your wealth, I mean, like, who's going to take it from you? They can take it from you.
It's funny and it's a funny story. Back in the days,
those Cubans are heavy, dude.
Well, like you would see like the pimps, they would have like the gold, and before they're getting arrested, you would see them take it off and start giving it to their girls, and they would use that to bail them out of jail. Like they were literally wearing their bail money around them. And it's just a little funny story about you would always see them like pulling off their rings and like necklaces and handing it off. So that way they have a way to get out.
Well, so I think that as we wrap up today's show, it's important to reflect on family and community and, what our rights really mean to us. And that's what I really wanted to, make prevalent in today's show is that this younger generation, they are prioritizing experiences over things. And how do we protect us and our natural environment as we experience life? And that's really, it's such a basic idea. You would think that so many people get it, but they don't. They tend to lose sight of what real liberty even really is. And that's the ability to protect the words that come out of your mouth, to defend what you say, to defend your position where you are, to defend who you are, where you are, and when you are. And if you don't have the ability and the tools and the foresight at your disposal to do that, ultimately you will wind up being a burden on society in some way, if not a burden on yourself. And boy, the form of burden that you are on yourself may be your last burden ever. You may not survive to see the end of it. And that's the scariest thing that we all want to avoid, especially when we're with our kids. Some of you have children, some of you are married, you have your partner. The last thing you want to do is let down your partner in the worst way possible. That could, you wind up getting robbed or worse. There's a lot of things that can happen. And unfortunately, the world is a dirty and scary place. And while we are a very high trust society, there are people that mean you harm. And, you're going to run into 150 or 200 people that are awesome, but there might be one person in that group of 200 that you want to watch out for.
Yeah.
They might have something bad planned for you. And had you misstepped or miscalculated or prepared improperly, it might not end well for you. And I'm not saying live life worried about that 1 out of 200. No, I'm not saying live life with that victim mentality. Oh, woe is me. The sky is falling. Every person's out to hurt me. People tend to have that view of gun owners. They think, well, what are you scared of? Why do you have to have a gun? Don't you know jujitsu, Matt? Don't you know karate? Don't you know how to protect yourself? Why don't you go to the gym, you big Why don't you go work out and get strong? Why do you need a gun? Well, guess what? I do work out. You work out. You know jujitsu. I may not be as good on the combat sports as you are, but I'm in shape. You better believe I can throw somebody out a window if I need to. This isn't about that. This is about the person who might mean you harm. They're going to have a gun. You better believe it. So damn, you better have one.
Yep.
And I find that such a low tier, low hanging fruit argument of why do you have all those guns? Or what are you scared of? As a matter of fact, I'm not scared of anything. What are you scared of?
Right.
I guarantee you, if you strip back the veneer of all the bullcrap you're peddling, you're scared of something. And you better believe it may even be that you're afraid of being a gun owner. Maybe you're afraid of guns, and that's why you don't have a gun. But you better believe they're going to try to, equate that to me being fearful of society. Bro, no way. It's actually the opposite. I'm not scared of anything because I'm prepared for anything. I think that's a really important mindset that people need to have.
I 100% agree, and I will comment on that, but I do need to make a correction. I stated about 3 minutes ago that the spot price for gold was $3,200 and some change per gram. I apologize. That was per ounce.
Gotcha.
So yes, just so you guys know, it's $3,244 per ounce. Now that correction has been made, as far as what are people scared of, as someone that owns a jiu-jitsu academy and we see new students all the time, I can tell you that the number one people fear is performance. Like they are scared of how they're going to perform. They in their mind, they believe they're perfectly capable. They're perfectly capable of defending themselves, whether it's with jiu-jitsu, whether it's with a firearm, whether it's with a knife. They, in their mind, think that they can do it. In actuality, they're helpless. They're helpless creatures.
They're scared of being proven wrong.
Exactly. They don't want to believe that they can't defend themselves or they can't defend their family. And when they actually try to learn, they realize how incapable they are. That's what they're scared of. They don't want to know. They want to continue to go through life believing they could do it if the time came. So that's the number one thing. And that happens a lot even with firearms training, man. Like, think about it. You leave the military and you'd like to believe, oh, I'm familiar with firearms, whether it's a pistol or firearm like a machine gun or, M4, AR-15. You don't go to the shooting range. You don't do competitions. You don't get training because you don't want to get shown how bad you really are. And that's like the number one thing you see. People are like, why don't you shoot USPA? Why don't you shoot this competition? Because you suck. Like, yeah, you're familiar with it. That doesn't mean you're going to go out and do well at the competition. And they don't want to be shown how bad they really are. They want to continue through life believing that they're capable. Man, and it's not true.
So I'll give you a little insider baseball. Like on days that I go out, so I'm due for some filming days to get out and cut some range content. Believe me, I read the comments. I know you guys are ready for some range content. I've got some awesome stuff to show you, by the way. I've got a Beretta 1301 in that we're going to do a video on. I've got a cool 10 gauge that we cut down that's really wicked. There's some sub guns, lots of neat stuff. So don't worry, we got a lot of things coming. But when I go out and film those videos, we'll go out and film as many in one day as we can possibly get done. And yeah, I'll change shirts. I'll change hats. I'm telling you the truth here. It's just, yes, I try to make it look like it's a different day, but a lot of times I'll film some of that stuff in the same day. It's just logistically easier. You're moving cameras around. It's hot and muggy. Maybe one day the lighting is just perfect because the clouds are overcast. You're like, oh man, this shot's looking great. You want to film as much as you can when the conditions are perfect, right? That's just the logistics of filming stuff, right? And it doesn't matter if it's gunplay or anything outdoors. When the conditions are perfect, yeah, you want to film while the getting's good, right? So, and there are days that I've gone out and man, I'll shoot all day and I go, wow, I had a fantastic day, man. I'll hit every piece of steel, logged every shot. None of the guns malfunctioned. Everything worked right. I got every shot the way I wanted it. I put a shot a bottle cap off with a shotgun slug. I did all headshots on the D28 at 35 yards. And man, I haven't shot a pistol in a couple of weeks. Like, man, I'm doing really good today. And there's days that I surprise myself and I go, wow, like I still got it, man. I can still shoot really good, even though I don't really practice as much as people might think I do. But then there are days where I go out and I'm like, man, I am shooting so royally shitty today. I should just hang up my hat as a YouTuber and just say, you know what? I give up. There are days that I have a shitty day at the range, and it's not always, roses and sunshine. Now, luckily, there are way more better days than there are bad days. But it just seems like there are some days that I go out and for some reason the skill set just doesn't match where my mental state is for that day. Mentally, I'm like, all right, man, we're good. We're there. We're in the zone. And then the body doesn't mesh with what the mind wants. And jiu-jitsu, I'm not a combat sports guy. Matt is, but it's the same thing. You can tell your body, move this way, do this, bear this load, take this impact, prepare to do this. You can want your muscle memory to do one thing, but unless you train that body to do what your mind tells it to, your body's not going to cooperate. Your body's definitely not going to take punishment. Your body's not going to, the central nervous system is going to be in shock when it's given a stimulus that it hasn't gotten before. Oh, yeah. And you're definitely not going to do that just on a competition, right? Like you're going to prepare. Part of training, when we say training, what do we mean by training? What do we mean by physical conditioning? When I go in and lift weights, I'm a power lifter. When I go in and lift weights and I'm powerlifting, you are shocking your central nervous system. You are giving a new stimulus to your muscles. Hey, you need to grow, right? And here's why, because we're breaking it down and you're telling your body, hey, we need our muscles bigger because we're constantly working to fatigue or working to muscle failure. We're sending we're developing the neural pathways in our nervous system and from our brain to tell our body, hey, we're weak, we need to be strong. And providing the food and rest and everything is there in the recovery, you will theoretically, depending on how good your genetics are, yeah, you're going to get bigger. You're going to grow back bigger. And that's how that training is. You're going to get your butt kicked a dozen times. But on that 13th time, man, it's like we've learned some mistakes. We've mastered this technique. We've mastered this. We've hardened our bodies. We've done our cardio. We've gotten better at cardio. We don't get winded as easily. And guess what? You become harder and harder to beat. As you learn more, you progress as a fighter and you get better.
That's right. And you nailed it. The only way to do it is to redline. We call it redlining. You take your body to the red line. When I'm doing like my high intensity training, I'm spending 45 minutes in zone 4, which is pretty high to stay for an extended amount of time. You're going into zone 5, zone 6 for 3 or 4 minutes at a time, then backing back down. But when your rest zone is zone 4, you're going to grow. Your cardiovascular strength is going to grow. Your cardio in general is going to grow. But it's a very uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah.
It is a very uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah. And truth be told, dude, right? Like, okay, could some of Matt's students come in the gym and do a 500-pound squat? Maybe not.
Probably.
Can I squat 500? Yes, I can squat 500. But those are two different things. Now, can I get winded for 45 minutes? That's a different story now.
Yeah,
that cardio, I'm telling you, get in zone 4 or 45 minutes of zone 4 cardio, you're burning 1,500 calories.
Yeah.
That's not easy, So those are two different stimulus. There are two different things that you are training your body to do. And the fact is, like me as a power lifter, not to get into this, because I'm actually going to have my trainer come in and do a podcast with us. He's going to be one of our first guests, by the way. We're going to have Pitt come in and we're going to talk about all this stuff. So I don't want to get into this in today's show because we're into today's show. But I'll just end by saying that, should you do cardio as a power lifter? Yeah, you should be doing some cardio. But if you're doing powerlifting at a high level, it is damn cardio. Because trust me, you get winded. Your heart rate is up. And if you take shorter rest periods in between your sets, let's say that you're doing, like, if my max deadlift is 540 or 520, and let's say I go in and hit reps for 275. Well, 275 is still a lot of weight. Even for people that aren't used to deadlifting, even 275 is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
But if I'm going in and hitting 275 for 5x5s, but I'm only resting like 45 seconds in between each set, that's going to smoke you. Oh, trust absolutely. Me, your heart rate's going to be 145, 155, and you're going to be smoked. Yep. It is cardio. Weightlifting is definitely at a higher level. It can get you into, and then the bodybuilding guys, they do more of the kind of circuit training where you get your heart rate up and you keep it there. And they're doing weightlifting, but they're doing like lots of volume with lower weight, and they're keeping that heart rate up. They're not resting a lot in between sets. They're getting in there and they're knocking it out, and they're keeping that heart rate high.
Yeah, they're doing like 30-second rests
Oh,
between
God,
sets.
yeah.
It's pretty brutal.
It sucks.
Yeah.
And that Sherm, that's how Shermichael works out. He does a lot of that circuit training, and he's fit. But, dude, it sucks.
That's how I do it. Like
it royally
yeah,
sucks.
I get in there, my workout, my split is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3-day split. My workout will probably take about 45 minutes.
But that's a hell of a 45 minutes.
Beginning to end, 45 minutes, you're taking 30-second pauses in between.
Right.
But get in, get out, boom.
See, my workout's 2 hours.
Different
Now,
story.
am I going full bore for 2 hours? No, I'm not. On the heavier lifts, I might take a 5-minute break in between sets.
But you're lifting like double the amount of weight.
Right. So it's all relative, y'all, and I guess that's an important thing. We're going to talk about it in more detail when we have the Coach Pitt here. But it is crazy how, I think the other day I did, when I did heavier weights on squats, I think I was doing 475 for 5x5s. And in between those sets, I'm going to sit down for 4 or 5 minutes. Yeah. I'm going to look at my phone for a minute. I'm going to drink some water, chill, let my heart rate get back down. And then we go in and hit that work again. But that's still, if you do 5x5s, that's 25 reps of 475.
Yeah, bro.
That's a lot of damn weightlifting, and you get a certain type of strong. It may not be that cardiovascular strong like you are, but it's definitely a core strength that, like, I would be curious. I think one day I should come up and do some jiu-jitsu training with you guys. Like maybe on a week that I'm taking a week off for deload, or I'm not working out for a week. Like maybe my trainer's on vacation and I have a whole week of nothing. Maybe I'll come in and do some training. Now, don't kill me.
No.
But I would love to come in and like kind of see how that crossover is, because I have a ridiculously strong core and I have ridiculously strong legs. And I think it'd be really cool to see like how I would fare in some of that stuff. Because you got to have strong legs to do jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah. You have to have strong core. Because aren't you is it like grappling where you're kind of down on the ground a bit?
It's grappling, but it uses a lot less muscle than you think.
Really?
But
I'm not technique.
It's 100% technique, but don't get me wrong. Being strong matters, and it does help. So, dude, it'll be fun. Let's do it.
I don't want to do anything crazy, but just give me a crash course on jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
You heard it here. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get in the ring, and don't kill me now. Okay. I'm old. I'm going to get broke. I saw what happened to your ankle. I ain't looking to have that happen to me.
That was bad. I'll take care of you, man.
Before we end today's show, I want to give one more shout out to a great supporter of the channel, and that's Undertac. When it comes to gear that can handle anything, there's no better choice than Undertac. Designed for and tested by an elite special forces team in Africa's harshest conditions, Undertac is made to perform when it matters most. Whether you're navigating tough terrain or just tackling your day, their underwear, socks, and shirts keep you dry, comfortable, and mission ready. Made from premium materials like Modal, which is 50% more moisture wicking than cotton, Undertac offers tactical performance that goes beyond the basics. From the ultra-comfortable boxer briefs to the American-made battle weave merino socks, you'll feel the difference. And your boys will too, if you know what I mean. Don't forget the hoodies and EDC t-shirts, rugged enough for anything, yet comfortable enough for every day. Go to undertac.com, that's undertac.com, and use the code LLP, that's Lima Papa 20, for 20% off site-wide. Whether you're gearing up for an adventure or for everyday life, you can trust Undertac to have your back. Plus, a portion of the profits support veteran-run organizations fighting human trafficking. Now, that's a no-brainer. Visit undertac.com, use the code LLP20 to get 20% off site-wide. Again, that's LLP, Lima Papa 20, to get 20% off site-wide on undertac.com. Great sponsor. And I tell you, I really love the infantry breeches. They're fantastic.
Great products. I know we say it all the time, but absolutely phenomenal.
Guys, if you don't do anything else, go on Undertac and get you a pair of those underwear. I'm telling you, they are freaking awesome. You're going to love them. Trust me, you are going to freaking love them. I know it seems like, I think they're like $30. It's like, $30 for a pair of underwear. But I'm telling you, they are so well made. They breathe so well. Your balls stay nice and cool. They are fantastic. You will love them. I promise. I promise, boy. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground in this in this video, and I think we really got around the subject matter where we needed to be in terms of the show topic and everything. But is there anything else you can think that we need to cover before we let people go?
No, I think I just want to say thanks to you guys. I know you guys take the time out of your day to listen to us and listen to us ramble on about our daily lives and things that we love to talk about. Hopefully, it was something that related to you or your lifestyle and how you live, especially this show, because this show is kind of the bread and butter of what we do.
Absolutely, man. And I really appreciate all of our viewers and listeners. Remember, we post every Monday at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Theoretically, if I remember to upload the show, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays here on YouTube on the Iraq Veteran 8888 YouTube channel. If you want to see our ugly mugs in video form, we post there every Monday. As well as you can download the show on all your favorite podcast servers, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, etc. So you can download the audio version as well. I know some of you like to listen on your way to work and that sort of thing. So I really appreciate you guys supporting the show. Also, check us out on Twitter, Iraq Veteran 8888 over on Twitter. Make sure you follow me on X there, and you can always give me your questions and comments, and we'll read some of those on the show and answer them for you. So many more on the way. Have a great week. We'll see you next Monday.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Life, Liberty, and Pursuit. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. You can support us over on Ballistic Ink by picking yourself up some merch. And remember, guys, danger is freedom. Have a good one.